So welcome back. Now in this episode, I'm going to answer the question, how to flip land for a profit. I don't use that term very often, but basically what it really means is how to buy it and then quickly resell it to most people in the industry. My name is Ted Thomas, and I've been in this business of tax liens and tax deeds for over 30 years. I started out as just a regular investor, buying tax defaulted property and buying tax liens. Then I grew into not only doing that, but I started helping other people doing it and became a coach and a mentor and kind of a guide to help people go along. So it helps a lot for all parts of the community to do this business. Why? Because doing tax liens, well, of course, that allows people to stay in their property when a tax lien is issued, but it allows an investor to make money and, of course, the local county makes money. So it's a good business for everybody. But today we're going to talk about how to flip land for a profit. So there's a lot of land out there, and a lot of people want to get involved in a piece of the rock. In other words, they want to own something to get started. And houses are expensive, as you know, and commercial property is even more expensive. So they start out buying residential land, sometimes acreage, sometimes open land, whatever. But people like to buy a piece of property so they can get started. So stay with me and I'll come right back and tell you more. How to flip land for a profit today. Now there's a very famous guy, and I'm going to show you his picture in just a second. His name was Will Rogers, and years ago he would make the comment was this: buy land, they're not making any more of it. Well, I think what he really meant by all that was, if you bought the land, you would still have profit, you would still have value, and you could sell it for a profit. And that was at a time when the country was really a frenzy with the stock market. Stock market would go up, and then it would crash down, then it would go up and crash down, and people would lose everything they had. And so he was kind of the guy that was giving advice to people, not so much like a guru, but just an advisor saying, you know, if you buy land, they're not making any more of it, and you'll probably have your value. So a lot of people still think that today, and I'm not so sure that I'm going to argue with them at all, because land has a lot of value, and it holds its value for a long time. So think about what he said, and think about where you would like to be. So if you want to buy land, that's okay. If you want to buy and then sell it quickly, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. So oversimplified, you want to buy the land at a good price, and then you want to resell it. Now, there's going to be times in the economy when you can't sell it. There's going to be times when if you buy good land, you can sell it and be the banker. So there's both sides to the equation. I think there's the truth, most people would like to own the land. So if you live in a city, you don't have any idea how much there is. But I'm going to assure you that we're not going to run out of land. That's for sure. We have plenty of it. Now, some people like to buy land to build a subdivision. Other people want to graze cattle on it. There's so many things to do with land that we could talk about it for 2 weeks. But you can do a lot with land. Some people like to buy, I personally like to buy residential lots. And if I can, I like to just sell them to the guy next door, or I like to finance them for other people, or I like to just go ahead and sell them. All right, now when I say go ahead and sell them, a lot of people say, well, that's flipping them. All right, so what are you looking at? You're looking at a large property. Someone owns that property. That's land. If they want to sell it, in order to sell that land, they're not going to be able to sell it quickly unless they're practically giving it away. All right, what else do they do with land? Well, they make subdivisions. They put cattle on it. There's any number of things that you can do with this land. But the point is, what you want to do is you want to sell it quickly. So here's what you want to know for sure. They're not going to run out of it. There's going to be plenty of it. So you better buy it right. Now, by that I mean you better buy it right, okay? All right, you can do any number of things with it, from agriculture to subdivisions to put industrial buildings on it. There's any number of things you can do with that land. However, flipping it quickly is the challenge that we're going to talk about today. So you might say, it's the American dream to own property. You want to start small. There's tons of this land out there. Now, where are you going to find it? Well, you can get involved in different newspapers that just sell raw land. You could go to auctions and buy raw land. I happen to be an expert in tax liens and tax deeds, and I'm going to tell you, if you go to those auctions, about 25% of the property at those auctions will be raw land or subdivided land or even residential lots. In other words, it has no real estate on the land. All right, now, these are risky investments. Now, why are they risky? They're risky because you're not getting income and you still have the taxes. So if you're not getting income like you would on a rental home and you're going to have to pay taxes, the banks are going to say, whoa, we're not going to finance you because you got liability and there's no assets to back it up. There's nothing you're going to be able to pay the taxes with. So banks don't want to finance this property. So when you buy it, more than likely you'll try and get the seller to finance you. All right, if the seller finances you, you're going to have a challenge reselling it quickly. But if you want to buy these pieces of property, you want to buy them right. Now, how are you going to buy them right? There's going to be tons of residential land out there. Every auction is going to have plenty of those. Okay, the fancy way of saying it is we're going to flip the property. Well, flip the property means selling it. Now, if you're going to sell that property, you better be prepared to do one of two things. One, give a very good price for it, or two, be able to finance it. So if you want to sell it quickly, I'm going to tell you, learn how to do installment sales, land contracts, contracts for deeds, and that kind of thing. Because then you can sell it, and the person can have small payments, which they can make to you on a regular basis. So it's a good idea to buy it for a good price, and then go ahead and think about selling it and getting it financed. Now, folks, there really is risk in raw land. Why? Because if there's no market for it, that's a big risk. What are you going to do with it? So start thinking exit strategy. If you don't have an exit strategy, you've got a big challenge on your hands. By that I mean, how are you going to get rid of this property? What are you going to do with it? Don't buy it and not know how you're going to sell it. So think about buying it low and selling it low. That would be okay. Buying it for a good price and being able to finance it, all right? Think about what I'm saying. If you haven't thought about things, you're just going to buy land, well, that's okay with me, but you are going to have taxes to pay, and those taxes every year rolls around pretty quickly. So the best strategy is always have multiple exit strategies for those pieces of land. Now, brokers buy lots of land on speculation. When they know that the city's growing or they know a neighborhood hasn't been built out, they'll buy on speculation. Most land investors have to have a lot of money, or they have to have a way to get out of that property. All right, now I like to buy at tax defaulted auctions. All right, so I will look at almost any residential lot because I know there's not going to be a lot of bidders, because most people like to buy a house. Why they buy a house? Well, they grew up in a house. They were probably conceived in a house. So they know a lot about houses, at least in their mind. So they want to buy those. But is there risk in houses? Yes. It could have some maintenance problems. It could have squatters move into it. You could have fires. You could have wind damage, whatever could happen to the property. Well, the land, you don't have all of those problems, but what you have is you have no income. So you need to think about, what are you going to do with it? So if you can buy for 10 cents on the dollar, you made a good price. If you have an exit strategy like selling it and collecting on the payments, that's a good idea. If you can't collect on the payments, then you're going to have a real challenge doing that. Okay, so it's a good idea. A good idea when you look at the land, look at it and say, what's the best use? Am I going to raise some cattle, or am I going to grow tomatoes on it? Am I going to just wait and see if the city moves in my direction and it can be used for something else? Or can it be sold right in the same neighborhood? Is there someone in the neighborhood that would like to have a piece of land where they could send the kids down there, they could put a baseball field on it, or they could practice touch football or whatever? The point is, most land you're going to have a difficult time even getting a mortgage. Even if you bought it for 10 cents on the dollar, the banks are still going to look at it and say, oh, we're not so sure we want to lend on that land. So if you're going to need a mortgage, then you're probably going to have to think of who you're buying that property from. Now, at tax auctions, you're buying it from the county, and I can tell you right now, they're not going to finance it. So you're going to need your cash, but how are you going to start getting cash coming in on that property? Now, there's lots of ways to bring cash in on the property. There's many ways to bring in cash on the property. Could you divide it up? Could you buy subdivisions that are raw land? There's many ways to do it. So here's what I'm going to suggest if you want to flip property. So I've taught hundreds of investors this, but my point is this. I tell investors, try and look for residential land, lots that are selling at auction. In other words, there's already buildings built out within that subdivision, and someone has decided they're just going to let their property go to auction. That property probably is very, as you might want to call it, flippable. It'll probably sell to someone that wanted to build right away. Or you could sell it and you could finance the property. But if you don't have an exit strategy, you're back to that same old problem again. So buy low, sell low is my strategy to start, number one. Number two, I produce a lot of people that have success by buying residential subdivisions. And I'll show you an example of that before I finish this video. All right, so there's a number of exit strategy, but this one subdivision video will explain it all in detail. So watch for that next. But meanwhile, I want to tell you about two important mistakes that people make at tax auctions. Number one big mistake is they don't look at the property. So if you haven't looked at the property, you might get in trouble because you might bid too much, number one. But what if there was a fire? What if there was a windstorm? What if there was a hurricane or some flooding or whatever? You're getting the idea. So you might be purchasing something that doesn't have value anymore, and I don't think the county's going to give you your money back. The other strategy is you don't have an exit strategy. Now, I mention it a lot on this video. Now, as I'm mentioning it, I'm saying when you don't have an exit strategy, you better know how you're going to pay those taxes if you're trying to flip land. I'll be back with more, but right below me, when this video finishes, below me will be a free gift from Ted Thomas.